Hello, everyone. This is another Black Conservative. I'm Ryan Boland. Thank you all for joining me. White House press secretaries made a comment stating that essentially advising Trump supporters not to resort to violence in this situation where his house was raided by the FBI. I'm going to read just a portion of this article, and then I'm going to get into my commentary about what I believe is what this is really all about. Just the audacity to say that is just amazing to me. But I think something else nefarious is going on. So let's go ahead and get into this. The White House urged Americans to remain peaceful after the FBI raided former President Donald Trump's home on Monday. We would ask Americans to remain peaceful in this time, White House press secretary, I can't pronounce her name, so you all know who she is. White House press secretary said during the daily briefing when asked about angry Trump supporters. Establishment media reports have raised fears about enraged Trump supporters declaring, quote, war on the deep state after the raid on the former president's home, raising the alarm that they are preparing for political violence, get this part, or even a second civil war. Now, I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to Google because the article goes on and goes into extension about what the press secretary is warning Trump supporters not to do. So you guys can read the entire article on your own free time. I will leave a link of it in the description box below. But let me start this video off right off the bat. I said that, didn't I? My previous video, I said that perhaps this would lead to another civil war between factions and different subgroups in this country. Liberals, conservatives, whites, blacks, gays, heterosexuals. And let me add something else to that too. Christians. Yes, Christians. People are not discerning what's going on. They're not seeing the handwriting on the wall. They're not, because they lack the knowledge of, in my opinion, they lack the knowledge of the Marxist insurgents that have taken control of our government and our school systems and the entertainment industry. They don't see that a lot of this stuff, I believe, is by design. It is designed to cause another civil war in order for those Marxist insurgents to come in and save the day and replace our constitutional republic with a socialist/communist government. That's their ultimate goal. But I'm praying and hoping that if we do get into have another war, civil war, it won't end up the way they want. But let me respond to a comment that was made in the comment section the other day, and I didn't get a chance to respond in the comment section. It was late at night, I didn't get a chance to respond. If you're watching this video, here's my response. You made the statement, and I'm paraphrasing, that conservatives, i.e. Trump supporters, did commit acts of violence, and correct me if I'm wrong, commit some acts of violence, because I made the a statement that it's the left that's initiating violence and not those on the right that I know of. And you mentioned January 6th. Okay, you mentioned January 6th Trump supporters. Now, and these were supposedly Trump supporters. Now let me say this right back. I don't advocate any form of violence in terms of initiating violence. I do believe in self-defense, and I advocate for self-defense. Okay, I believe in that, and I support self-defense. Someone's coming at you, you have a right to defend yourself, whether you're on the right or the left. If they initiate violence against you, you don't have to take it. This isn't the 1960s civil rights movement where Martin Luther King and his followers and so forth was being beat and all this kind of stuff, and water hose was being sprayed on them, and they just take it. No, you don't have to do that. However, let me say this about that situation with January 6th. Number one, from far as I know, there have not been any acts of violence committed by these people that supposedly breached the Capitol Hill. I don't know of any acts of violence they initiated against guards, against any of the politicians, or any of that. I don't see. They may have been looking for these people, but are we to assume that they were going to commit acts of violence against them? Maybe, maybe not. But the point is, they never did. Violence was committed against them. And in fact, one female was shot and killed. Okay. But I don't know of any act. But to me, that's not an act of violence. They're not committing any real acts of violence. Where's the acts of violence in January 6th? What acts of violence did these supposed Trump supporters commit when they did this? Now, to rebut, also, let me put something else out there. All through the summer of 2020, Black Lives Matter and Antifa initiated acts of violence against innocent whites and blacks, cost millions of dollars in damage all over this country. I think at least a dozen people were killed by these subversive, radical, far-left groups. They initiated the violence. Did nobody come towards them? And I don't want to hear about the Kyle Rittenhouse there. I don't want to hear nothing about that because that's already been taken care of. That was self-defense. I'm not about to argue about that. That was self-defense. We're not going to go over that. The person that he deserved what he got because he would have killed Kyle Rittenhouse. So I'm not going to go over all of that. That was self-defense, period. But that's what Black Lives Matter and Antifa did all through the summer of 2020. So who's really doing the initiating? I told you, I'm going to hold to my judgment and my opinion. It is the radical left initiating these acts of violence as far as I know. January 6th does not count as an act of violence to me. So I reject that assumption. But like I said, if there are acts of violence being committed by people, being initiated by people on the right, I disagree with that. I disagree with any acts of violence being initiated by people on the right. But if they're defending themselves, then I agree with defending themselves. That's not initiating. I'm talking about initiating acts of violence. But having said that, I said this before. This is what this is going to end up coming to. It's going to end up coming to another civil war. Now, it could be argued that the FBI raiding of Trump's home was planned. I'm putting them a tinfoil hat here. Was a planned situation in which the deep state or the elites on the top of the pyramid is orchestrating these events to frustrate those on the right, to get them angry, to frustrate them to the point where they are willing to initiate acts of violence. My suggestion is don't do it. Keep doing the right thing. Defend yourself if someone comes against you, but do not initiate violence against them. Do it the right way, because do it through the voting process. Do it through protesting or whatever, and do it through the voting process, but don't initiate it. Let the radical left keep doing what they're doing, because anyone with eyes to see and a brain to think can see right off the bat by ignoring the mainstream media's nonsense that it is the far radical left that is initiating acts of violence. They are the radical ones because they have been brainwashed and diluted and poisoned by communist ideology in the schools and on TV and by politicians. They're being radicalized in the school systems. They're being radicalized through movies and you can see it in the movies. All this let's do the revolution stuff. Revolution is in the air. There's no revolution in the air. Not a real revolution, not like the Revolutionary War. That needed to be a revolution. You know? And one could even argue the Civil War. That needed to happen. But this doesn't need to happen. It's being stirred up. It's being stirred up by the hidden Marxists in the background, causing this hatred, stirring up anger and frustration in the groups, getting them to come at each other. And let me end the video on this. I mentioned earlier about how that even churches are going to be coming against each other. You got churches angry at each other. You got denominations angry at each other on different political beliefs. That's a shame, because what the churches should be doing is focusing on the spiritual elements. that this is a spiritual war that we're involved in, and what churches ought to be doing, even if we cannot agree on our political affiliations. At the end of the day, it's spiritual. Ephesians chapter 6, for those that are watching this that are Christians, remember Ephesians chapter 6, where the Apostle Paul said, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, spiritual wickedness in high places. We wrestle against forces that we cannot see. The real battle is in the realm that we do not see. What we physically see is the external three-dimensional shell that these powerful spiritual forces use to manifest. So the real battle is in the spiritual realm. So for those of you that are watching this, that are born again Christians, you know what you need to be doing. We need to be praying as well as informing. Praying for our country, praying for the White House, praying for these groups, praying that they come to faith in Christ, praying that they won't result to violence. But unfortunately, if it comes to that point, we got to pray for victory for this country. That will be victory for all people. Victory for all people. Okay. So I just wanted to say that. I mean, this is what I believe going on. As it said, the article said, it might end up a civil war. I believe it. It's not whether or not it's going to happen. The question isn't whether or not there's going to be a civil war. The question is when. And my heart pounds when I think about the midterms, and pounds even harder when I think about the 2024 elections. Our country is dangling, y'all. It's dangling on a thin thread. It's dangling, man. We are in danger. And I know that sounds cynical, but we are in danger. But I believe, let me end this video on this. As a Christian, I believe that God is in absolute control, that he has a plan and purpose for this country. He is in absolute control. Whoever he allows to get in office, whether he allows Biden to stay in office or whatever, he's in absolute control, and he has a purpose for everything he does. And I bank on that. After everything that we do as conservatives and people who are moderate and are not connected to these radical leftist groups, or any group that's radical for that matter, know that God is in absolute sovereign control. He has a purpose and a plan. And I believe that. That's what I learned. After everything's said and done, that's where my faith lies. It lies in God and not in the political realm. But we need to do what we can do in order to make changes down in the three-dimensional realm that we're in. So what do you guys think? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. God bless you all, and see you again.